wanted to start off with just asking you, why you chose to run for re-election.
Well, I certainly think, number one, I'm very proud of our state and everything that we've accomplished in our state, and I think I've been part of that progress and moving us forward. So I've done bills on oral contraception over the counter, pharmacy benefit manager or PBM reform, no boys participating in girls' sports. I've done work on educational choice and school choice and charter schools as part of that with Senator Tim Scott. But we have done a lot of things to help move our state forward, and with the great progress that our state legislature and Governor Reynolds have been doing, we feel that we're partners in that vision and endeavor with them in moving our state forward and supporting the people who choose to live, work, and raise a family here.
And you are facing a Republican challenger in the June primary. Can you tell voters why they should be, voting for you and not your Republican opponent?
Well, first and foremost, I have been tremendously accessible. So I am in Iowa. I am throughout the district. I meet with Iowans whenever they come to D.C. I'm known to be one of the most busiest Congress people in the fact that I, go out of my way to be able to meet with them, to hear their voices, and to help solve their problems. I'm known as a problem solver. So I put forward legislation. I work very hard with members of our community and of our state. And when it comes to lowering prescription drug prices, being a voice against censorship, making sure the government is accountable, trying to do things to close the border, control spending, but also prioritize spending, and make sure people have the resources they need. I have been on the forefront of all of those things. And I think I deserve re-election because I have been a very active, very busy, very accessible Congresswoman for the people of the 1st Congressional District.
Sure. And if you are reelected, what is going to be your first piece of legislation that's going to be your priority?
Well, we have several pieces of legislation that we hope to get through now. One on accelerating kids' access to care. Another is on the Drug Act, which is on PBM reform, which will immediately lower prescription drug prices. If those things don't get through, we're going to continue to work on that. I think lowering prescription drug prices is critically important for patients. Patients are reeling, people are reeling, families, from the high prices that are from the Biden administration spending that led to inflation. So we're still suffering high prices and high interest rates. So as we work through those things, we want to help lower prices, get inflation under control, hopefully lower interest rates so people can afford to get in a home and rental prices can come down. And then we got to tackle the border crisis. So we're going to continue to work on securing our southern border, stopping the flow of illegal fentanyl that's coming into our state that has led to record overdose deaths, and then also the record numbers of people and the control that the cartels have over our southern border. I think those are all things that we can work on together, and it'll be great to be able to work on those with a larger Republican majority as well as a Republican Senate and Republican president.
For sure. And I was actually going to ask you about inflation. That's one of the things that's on voters' minds. And you mentioned that bill. Obviously inflation and lowering costs, it's a complex issue. Do you feel that alone will be enough for Iowans to feel some relief?
Well, first and foremost, we passed a bill, H.R. 1, which is an energy bill. And so one of the things the Biden administration did after inauguration was to shut down American oil and gas. If you want a cleaner, healthier planet, the best thing you could do is to export American oil and gas. Why? Because our natural gas is 40% cleaner. And we know that food, 60% of the cost of food is from energy, but the cost of energy goes across all sectors of the economy. So if we can increase American energy independence and dominance, that will help to lower costs. So that's one of the things that we have to do right away. Prescription drug costs are a problem for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a mom raising kids, if you're a family, if you're a single individual, or if you're a senior citizen. Drug costs are very high. Part of that is from the lack of transparency in the prescription benefit managers, or PBMs. And my first piece of legislation on PBMs and transparency was when I was a state senator in 2019. So we're going to continue to work on that, and not only making drug costs more affordable, also healthcare costs more affordable. So I think when you work on those things, energy cost, food cost, lowering inflation, hopefully lower interest rates to make housing more affordable, people should feel the effects of that right away.
And then immigration was another one, you kind of touched on a little bit. as well. What specific action do you want to see Congress take to help with immigration?
Well, first and foremost, we need to shut down the southern border. We have record number, every single month is a record number of people coming across. I think the Biden administration thought that their open border policies would slow down. As if you recall from 2021, at first they said it was a pent-up demand and surge from the Trump years, and then it was just seasonal, and then it was excuse after excuse, but it's record numbers every single month that are coming across. But it's more than that. It's the operational control of our border is in the cartels. They are making billions of dollars through human smuggling. We have 85,000 children that we have lost in the system, our HHS, and those kids are, you don't know if they're in child labor or sex trafficked. So it's really a stain on the American public. And then, as we mentioned, the fentanyl coming across the border, so record number of overdoses. So yes, H.R. 2, our border bill, it's important that we get it across. Asylum reform, that we get that across. Chain migration, we need to slow that down. Reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy that President Trump had negotiated with the President of Mexico. It's going to be tough to get that put back in place, but I do think we can do it, and I think we have levers to be able to do that. But, you know, our Constitution is that people apply for asylum from their home country, not get into the country and then, you know, show up for an asylum hearing a year or 2 years or 10 years down the road. And specifically, having the number of administrative judges to do that. We already know from the many trips I've made to the border that the number of people who actually qualify for asylum in this country is only about 1%. So 90% of people do not go back for their asylum hearing. Of the 10% that go back, only 10% are eligible for asylum. And so we know that most people are coming across the border for economic reasons.
And kind of following up on that, I think you may have touched on it a little bit, but one of the criticisms with the asylum process is that it takes too long for somebody seeking asylum to get it. A lot of times they may need it right away to, you know, get out of the circumstances that they're in. Are there any policies that you would like to see maybe, you know, adjusting that program a little bit?
Well, certainly I think, you know, one of the things to look at and was addressed in our H.R. 2 border bill and immigration bill was asylum reform. So increasing the number of administrative law judges that are at the border so people can go through their asylum hearing at that time. Not coaching people to say the right words when they come to the border so that, you know, if they're persecuted or they're terrorized, you know, there are certain language that's used that allow people into the United States. The Remain in Mexico policy, if you're coming from another country, you go into Mexico, you don't automatically get to enter into the United States. I think that's another policy that's very important to put back in place. And I think when you do those things, what will happen is that the flow of illegal aliens will decrease. One of the reasons why there are such massive numbers now is that they're getting to go into the interior of the country. The cost is enormous. The cost to our states along the border is enormous, but we know that every state is a border state, whether it's the number of people, whether it's people in the cartels and gangs and violence, which we've seen all throughout the country, whether it's the numbers of people that are in the school system, in the hospital system. All of those things are a cost to the American people. We want legal immigration. We want people that want to come here, that want to assimilate into our country, and that then leads to we need a faster legal immigration system. It shouldn't take 10 to 16 years to become a legal citizen of this country. So let's work on the legal part of it, the administrative law judges and asylum hearing, and I think that we can have a more orderly system than we have now, and we don't have to cede operational control of our borders to the cartels.
And one more thing on immigration, while you guys are working to kind of fix some of that, we're seeing some states take action. We saw Iowa pass a bill signed into law. It is currently held up in the courts, but do you think that that is something that states should be taking into their own hands, or something that the federal government should be left in charge of?
Well, constitutionally, it's supposed to be the federal government, but when the administration is not enforcing the laws of this nation, then I do think that states can protect their own citizens. That's one of the jobs of states to do, is to protect their citizens, protect the people within their boundaries of their state. So if you have a federal government that is an administration that is telling federal government agencies not to enforce existing law, then I certainly think that it seems rational to me that states would help to enforce the federal government's own laws. We know that this is going to be challenged in the courts, but several times the Biden administration has been smacked down by the Supreme Court for not upholding laws, not upholding things that were put in place, such as Remain in Mexico, Title 42. So we'll see what they say, the courts say, but in the meantime, I do think, you know, sending our National Guard troops down to the border to help with controlling our border makes sense to me. You know, we know that the Democrats have been sanctuary city policies, open border policies. I've seen that from my Democrat opponent as well too, and it's critically important. People want to know that they're safe. They want to know that their cities are safe, and they want to know that we're not having, you know, people from the Chinese Communist Party. We're not having people on the terrorist watch list coming across our border, which we've had record numbers, and that, you know, there's not untold numbers of fentanyl and other illegal drugs coming in because the cartels will send hordes of people in one place and then in another place while the Border Patrol agents are tied up processing people. They're sending drugs and people who don't want to be identified through another part of the border.
In regards to Israel and Hamas war that we're seeing, can you talk a little bit about what you've been fighting for in Congress and what else you would like to see Congress do?
First and foremost, I think it bears repeating that Israel was invaded by Hamas on October 7th. Hamas didn't just attack a military institution, they attacked innocent civilians, women, children. They raped women, they killed children, they killed elderly people, elderly civilians. They took people hostages. There remains over 100 hostages. We do not know if they are dead or alive. And that on numerous occasions, the Palestinians have been offered a two-state solution, and they have declined. Israel has not been in Gaza since 2005. They pulled out. The Palestinians elected Hamas to be their governing authority, and we know that Hamas uses humanitarian aid to build tunnels underground, to buy arms, and that money does not go to the Palestinian people. So I think for Israel to be able to survive as a country in the Middle East, which is a democracy, which holds very similar American values as we do, which has been really a shining light to what can happen when you desalinate and irrigate and grow crops, grow an economy. You know, the really value of free speech, freedom of religion, and how that can help propel a nation. You know, those values are very much in concert and keeping with the United States. I'll stand by our ally Israel. I think it's important that we do that. None of us want a tragedy of innocent children or women to be injured in Gaza, but at the same point in time, it is very important for Israel to be able to defend itself. We've been fighting, number one, to get them support, number two, to get them arms so that they can conduct operations, and also, you know, to rearm the Iron Dome so they can protect themselves from the hundreds of thousands of missiles that come across from both Hamas, that come from Hezbollah, and then, as we recently saw, that actually come from Iran itself.
And then, kind of switching topics a little bit, you recently made comments about China paying for a Muscatine student trips to go over to China, and you said that it had national security risk. Can you kind of explain why you feel that way?
Well, just like we're concerned about TikTok, which 20% of TikTok is owned by ByteDance, and if you're a company in China, you're at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party. You have to share all data, all information. I can't go into our classified briefings in TikTok. We also have concerns about the Confucius Institutes at colleges. So we know that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to exert undue influence in both our college systems as well as our school systems, and through apps such as TikTok. So just as we have to be concerned about how they violate and abuse patents, they don't honor patents or intellectual property, we know that they're trying to make inroads into young minds and young people through TikTok and other ventures. So just like those are worrisome national security issues, these entreaties, I think, first and foremost, to have cultural exchange and be able to travel to a foreign country as a student is a privilege. It's a wonderful thing, and I would not want to at all to diminish the ability of a student to travel abroad. However, when it's being paid for by the Chinese Communist Party, and we know that they're a propaganda arm, then that's where there are national security issues. And so I think that our concern has been conveyed to the State Department. The State Department has reached out to the school. We're setting up combined meetings with myself, the school, and the State Department, because we just want the school to be fully aware of what the Chinese Communist Party is doing. We know from conversations with people who have been in China, and even Ambassador Branstad when he was the ambassador, that they monitor all communications. They will come in and they will toss your rooms. Even if there are members of Congress that go to China, they have to come back and have their phones scrubbed because they plant bugs, they listen in to devices, they will track devices. So, you know, for us, if we were as members of Congress to go over, there are certainly certain security issues. TikTok, for instance, is not allowed on a federal device because of the national security implications. So I just think it's important for schools to understand that. How it came to our attention was we were asked to comment on a Daily Mail article, and the reason why the Daily Mail knew that this particular school had been to China was that the Chinese Communist Party had put out a video of the students in Europe as a propaganda video. So I think, you know, schools need to be aware of what's happening and how the Chinese Communist Party uses information and what they're saying about their students when they're there. So have no problem with their visiting, but there should be briefings by the State Department, and then the funding, I think certainly when it's funding by the Chinese Communist Party, you have to sit back and really ask yourself, what are the intentions of the Chinese Communist Party? What are the motivations? And we know that Muscatine has a very special relationship with Xi Jinping when he was mayor of Hubei province.
For sure. You've co-sponsored a Life at Conception bill. Just curious why this is something you feel should be tackled at, you know, the national level instead of something that is left up to the states.
Well, I think first and foremost, we often sign on to bills because philosophically I'm pro-life. But at the same point in time, bills then get modified and amended as they go along. We know that the Dobbs decision turned back the decision of abortions back to the states, which is where I think that it belongs. And so each state, our state in Iowa, has passed a bill that limits abortion after 6 weeks. Other states will have, you know, other time periods that they go. I'm pro-life with exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Fully have supported contraception, and I sponsored a bill for oral contraception over the counter in 2019 as a state senator. I've sponsored the same things at the federal government level, but I've also been working on it with a bipartisan group for paid family leave. I've worked on legislation towards adoption and making that easier. Got a bill for the earned income tax credit to be given to a woman while she's pregnant, not just after birth, so that families know that they have resources if they're struggling financially and they want to give birth, that they know they have that support beforehand. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to support both women and families, and I'm going to continue to work on those things.
And so you did mention, I just wanted to clarify, you did say that you felt states should be in charge
Yes,
of that.
I think the Dobbs decision returned the decision of abortion back to the states. I think that's where it's best to be. And so you know, as I said, our state has already made, you know, legislation in that regard. Other states may consider it, but I think it's important to know that I have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother when it comes to abortion, and I think that that's really in alignment with the majority of the country.
So would you not sign on to a bill now, like at the federal level?
I've not signed on to a bill now because now that the Dobbs decision has occurred, that's really kind of changed those dynamics. And as we've seen, we know that looking at in vitro fertilization or IVF, and as a doctor, I'm very supportive of that. We need to have provisions to make it very clear what it is that we're talking about.
Sure. I know you're not, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not sitting on the Agriculture Committee.
Correct.
The Farm Bill, is there anything specific that you would like to see? And do you feel it's important to pass a new one this year for Iowa farmers?
So when you talk to Iowa farmers, they certainly think it's important to pass another farm bill. The farm bill gets reauthorized every 5 years. It is very challenging. It's always a heavy lift to get the farm bill across. This time was no different. And so it was extended last year. That's when the expiration was. It's been extended. We finally got text for the Farm Bill. So Representative Feenstra and Representative Nunn sit on the Agricultural Committee. But yes, we're very concerned about things within the Farm Bill: crop insurance, animal disease surveillance, broadband, biodiesel tax credits, the renewable fuel standard, and how it's applied within the Farm Bill. So there are a lot of very important stuff, conservation credits that are in the Farm Bill that we really would like to see passed. When I talk to my farmers, they would really like to see a Farm Bill done this year.
And is there any impacts that you could see, or any impacts to Iowa farmers if there isn't a new one passed this year?
Well, you know, farmers are really having a difficult time right now because corn is close to $4 a bushel, and so we know if corn gets under $4 that many farms will go bankrupt. We're seeing the same thing on soy prices. The other thing we haven't talked a lot about in this administration, and this administration hasn't done anything on, is trade. And trade is extraordinarily important to farmers. So to open up new products, new markets, and trade agreements, free trade agreements that are not unduly penalizing the United States, are very important to our farmers. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we're interested in having the Farm Bill make it across the finish line, and having the text of the bill come out today. I think it's very refreshing that we may get that across the finish line this year.
And one of the things that we saw, at least on the GOP presidential campaign trail, was a lot of talk about Social Security. What are kind of your thoughts on that program?
Well, first and foremost, Social Security is a program that is not an entitlement. People pay into Social Security. And so this is an earned benefit in my estimation. However, Social Security was not meant to be the complete retirement support for individuals. It was meant to supplement other savings that individuals had made. And so we know that Social Security is running out of money, and that's very concerning. It's concerning that young people paying into the system right now, that they know that Social Security is going to be there for them when they also get to retirement age. So looking at how do we shore up Social Security, where there is fraud in Social Security, I think those things are very important that we look forward to. And then we need a bipartisan commission to study the debt. So where there are gaps, what do we do to shore up those gaps, and how can we make sure that this system is going to be available? But no one on the Republican side is talking about making cuts to Social Security or doing away with Social Security. That's just a myth.
Sure. And then just kind of my last thing, on top of all the state races we're seeing here, we also have the presidential general election. Former President Donald Trump hasn't come out and officially endorsed you. Are you planning to support him? And do you, have any idea on why he hasn't officially endorsed you?
Well, I'll certainly be supporting President Trump. That's going to be an easy vote, especially when the alternative is President Biden. And I think under President Biden, we're seeing increased crime, we're seeing increased interest rates, so making it hard for businesses and families to be able to survive or buy a new house or rent a house. We have a wide open border, crime, the economy is not doing well, people are struggling. So for all of those reasons and more, I will be voting for President Trump. You know the endorsement I'm really looking for? I'm looking for the endorsement of the people that I represent, that I work hard every day to be accessible, to be available, to listen to their problems and their issues and make sure we solve those problems. Whether it's a passport or a visa or an IRS refund, whether it's helping to get access or our community project funding, I'm here serving the people of the 1st Congressional District, and that's whose endorsement I want the most.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I would just like to say it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to represent the people of Iowa. I'm so very proud of the state that I represent. People in Congress will say, I'm tired of hearing about Iowa, but that's the state I represent. I'm proud to do it, and it's a real honor and privilege to be able to represent them.